in franchise history. As for the Blazers, their first playoff loss when leading by 17 or more points at the half in franchise history. That's now back-to-back playoff wins when trailing by at least 15 points for the first time in franchise history for the Spurs. The Blazers, they suffer their 8th loss in their past 9 at home, but can they get a little revenge? It's going to be tough. They're on the road, Game 5 Tuesday in San Antonio. And we now welcome in CBS Sports NBA analyst John Gonzalez. And what a turn of events in Portland. Blazers leading by 19 at one point in the first half. The Spurs, they go on to just absolutely dominate the second half and going on to win 114-93. San Antonio becoming the first team in NBA playoff history to trail by at least 15 points at the half. And then you go on to win the game by 15 or more. But in your eyes, how are they able just to flip the switch there in the second half?
Yeah, they dominated at both ends of the floor in the second half. They outscored the Blazers 73-35 in the second half, and it was just, there's so much. You get so much of a boost from Victor Wembanyama, right? Because he comes back. He was in the concussion protocol. I was shocked that he even got on the plane to Portland. He didn't play in Game 3. Ends up going out there in Game 4 and having a 27-point double-double. But really, his biggest impact, Kiana, was at the defensive end, where he goes for 4 steals and 7 blocks. And not surprisingly, as a result of that, the Spurs absolutely dominated the points in the paint. When he's out there, the paint is a no-fly zone, and that's a problem for the Blazers because Denny Advia, who is their best player, likes to get into the paint. He likes to go downhill and drive, and that's a really difficult thing to do when you get there, all of a sudden Victor Wembanyama is lurking. And even though Denny had a pretty good game tonight, 26.7 rebounds, 3 assists, it just wasn't enough, and that's kind of hard to say because, if you're the Blazers, you need a big game from him to have a chance. You got it, and you still weren't in this thing because you absolutely collapsed in the second half. And I'm looking at a guy like Donovan Clingan, who's been an absolute disaster in the series. And then poor Scoot Henderson, he was big earlier in the series. Tonight, 27 minutes, 0 points. So the Spurs just put them on absolute lockdown in the second half, and that has everything to do with Wemby.
I want to go, let's dive more into Wemby, shall we? Because he showed no ill effects from that concussion, scoring 27 points to go along with those 11 rebounds and 7 blocks. But I want to take your impression of just his performance we saw in Game 4.
He's ridiculous. I mean, again, 7 blocks alone. If you're saying 7 blocks in a single game, that's otherworldly. There's a reason why he's the defensive player of the year and likely will be for the foreseeable future, if not for the stupid 65 game threshold. If he didn't have to clear a certain bar there, it would be his in perpetuity. The only thing that can possibly hold him back from winning it moving forward for the next, 5-10 years is if he doesn't play that many games. So on top of the 7 blocks, he has those 4 steals, and there were just nothing the Blazers could do to combat him on the defensive end. And then the offensive end, he was spectacular again. And that's really where he's leveled up this year, Kiana, where we all know what a phenomenal defensive player he is, but he's still figuring out what he can really do offensively. And when he really levels up on his game, when he finally really gets a consistent outside shot and then realizes that, and he did more of that this year, realizes that, I'm 7'4" or 5, and I can just dominate everybody in the paint. It's a wrap for everybody. And the Blazers, they didn't have an answer for him. Again, Donovan Clingan, not that guy. And then they did something pretty interesting, I thought, which was that they threw Drew Holiday at Victor Wembanyama a bunch. And that's sort of reminiscent of what the Thunder did last year with Nikola Jokic, where they would put Alex Caruso on him because, the traditional bigs, if that's not working, we might as well switch it up and give him a weird look. And Drew Holiday's a pretty good defender anyway. So that was just sort of a last-ditch effort by the Blazers. And it's not their fault, right? It's not their fault that they don't have an answer for Wemby because nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the point right there. Teams are trying to figure out what can you do to combat him. Like you said, they couldn't combat him offensively or defensively in this game. So that takes me to my next question because the series, it is shifting to San Antonio for Game 5. That's on Tuesday. Just given the way these last 2 games have gone for Portland, do you view this series as potentially over?
Yeah, I think it's a wrap. I had it in 5 for the Spurs. I gave them a game. In this game, I thought they came out gangbusters, and I'm thinking, okay, well, Victor Wembanyama's back, but the Blazers are playing their best basketball in the first half. What happens if they tie this up? You go back to San Antonio. Now the Spurs are in their head. They're thinking a little bit, but the way that the Blazers collapse in the second half, now it's in their head, right? That's a long flight from Portland to San Antonio where you're thinking we just absolutely got run off our own floor after playing our best basketball in the first half. We played some of our worst basketball in the second half. And even if that hadn't happened, Kiana, the Spurs are just the better team, right? I mean, we all expected the Spurs to win this series pretty handily. I give the Blazers credit. They've had a great season. They've exceeded expectations. They really landed on something with Denny Advia. You're going to get Dame Lillard back next year. It's one of those things where, hey, we made the Spurs work a little bit harder than we thought, or maybe some other people thought that we were. And if they get, a gentleman's sweep in game 5 and they come back from San Antonio with the series completely over and they go into their offseason, that's kind of what we all anticipated was going to happen.
Backs against the wall, you're on the road, Portland trying to make something happen, but what it's looking like right now, Wemby is unstoppable, and we'll see if they can try to find a way to stop him in game 5. As always, John Gonzalez, we appreciate you stopping by. Well, taking a look at the largest halftime comeback wins. This is just the Spurs playoff history. That's a long history of the Spurs in the postseason, and this one against the Trailblazers. Trailing at one point at the half by 17, you go on to win by 21. Talk about a turn of events that look to keep things hot on Tuesday.
Just a masterful performance and a must-win spot kind of for the Raptors, because you definitely won't go back home to Cleveland or go back to Cleveland down 3-1. You would be in a tough spot if that was the case. Now it's 2-2. Look, we're back to kind of solid ground. Both teams kind of stole one at home. So here we go.
Yeah, it certainly has felt like that. Adding in that they've had an answer for Donovan Mitchell in particular, who's really struggled away from home. What's your concern level with him moving forward? And really, what are you seeing from this Raptors defense that's giving him problems?
Well, it kind of reminds me of a situation when I played with Giannis kind of in his he thought, hey, look, I'm the man. I'm going to try to take us and put the team on our back. Donovan Mitchell just has to trust his teammates to make the right play. We saw it at the end of the game. He didn't necessarily need to take that shot. He didn't have to take that three-point shot that kind of lost him the game. He could have moved the ball, got a better shot, or got someone else open. Donovan Mitchell is a great playoff player. He has all these stats, averages so many points. But right now, the Raptors are saying, look, we're going to throw this coverage at you. It's going to kind of be a token double. We're going to stay late, and we're going to make you pass it. Donovan Mitchell just has to make the right play every single time, and he hasn't been doing that, and then he has to force the offense, and it kind of snowballs into now what you see, a 4-point loss when you guys were up for the most part down the stretch.
Yeah, Toronto has now evened this series. It's interesting, the home team has won every game in this series. So with that being said, who will be the first team, you think, to steal a game on the road?
I'm going to probably go Cleveland. I played in Cleveland also as well, so I've been there as well for the playoffs. I mean, so I've seen both arenas in playoff moments, and they're tough spots to play in. Listen, Cleveland was selling out the arenas when we had a top 5 pick. So during the playoffs, I mean, I'll never forget, it was so loud one time when I just went to observe a game. I actually left. It was too much going on. So I think Cleveland will have to win this series, Cleveland's going to have to go on the road and win a game.
All right, we'll leave that there. I thought it was really interesting. I had to do a double take, John. I don't know about you. At the end of the first quarter, it was 17-14. At the end of the first quarter, were you surprised with just how low scoring this one in particular was?
I wasn't surprised. I mean, Cleveland's a really good defensive team with Mobley and Allen, and then you've got Ingram, Barrett, Barnes, Podol, Jacoby Walter. These are all plus defenders. So it's kind of a rock fight. Shots weren't going in. And, game 4, you're sitting on everything. You know everybody's moves. You know your opponent's move. You know what they want to run. So that was kind of the epitome of the first quarter, even the whole game. No one cracked 100. Because right now, look, everyone's just sitting on what everyone is doing, and you just have to figure out how to win that war of attrition, and Toronto did that today.
All right, let's get your final thoughts on the rest of this series.
Yeah, I think for Cleveland, it's been like this for years, right? They kind of struggle in the playoffs. They find ways to win, but it doesn't look pretty. I think you've got to ponder a lineup change. You can't be scared to hurt people's feelings. I think Cleveland needs to go small. Start Mobley at the 5, bring Allen off the bench. I know he's making all that money and feelings are going to get hurt, but if you want to win, you have to be willing to change and do things differently if it's not working. I don't think the 2 big lineup is working. They've struggled. And so I kind of look back on the Rudy Gobert situation 2-3 years ago where he wasn't playing in the fourth quarter. He wasn't getting many minutes in one series. It was just one series, but people made a big deal of it, but that's coaching. So I think if you're Cleveland, you've got to start pondering some lineup switches and change, maybe go small to counter kind of what Raptors are doing by going small, having Barnes at the 4 and Murray Boyce at the 5.
We'll see if any adjustments are